My name is Ricky Volk, and this is another making of video for my new EP titled INLOA. I already made one making of video, which was about the first song called I Never Liked Orange Anyway, which this EP's title is an abbreviation for. But this video is about the second song on the EP called Disease at the Door. The video about the first song covered a lot of ground that has to do with the process I used for all three of the songs on the EP, so I'm gonna kind of leave some of that stuff to that video. But to summarize the common things I did for all three of these songs, all of them were done very quick. I kind of explained more of why in the first video. It has to do with the dates of some events, and I kind of wanted to convey a little more of a raw, almost punk edge to these songs, except this song stands out a little more from the other two. The other two songs are very much rock, kind of heavy songs with very loud yelled vocals, whereas my initial intention for this song was to just kind of be a simple acoustic song to add some dynamics to the EP and kind of bridge the gap between the two wilder songs. And so speaking of acoustic, this is the main guitar that I was going to use on this song. It's a Sheeran by Loudon guitar, which is an Ed Sheeran line of guitars that he makes with Loudon. It's kind of a tiny guitar. It's not as tiny as like a Little Martin, which he used to use. It's mostly meant for beginners, but there's some uniqueness to it in how tiny it is and how compact it is and kind of what it's made out of. It goes really well with like this loop pedal. I don't have a wide array of acoustic guitars, but this one does the job for now. And so the topic of this song was meant to be kind of emotional and somber, as acoustic songs tend to go. And so I had some mildly somber chords in mind, and like the other two songs, I just kind of played the first thing that came to mind. And I intended for this to be just a short, almost White Stripesy kind of acoustic song, and I kind of veered off my original intention. I wrote this one so quickly. I probably wrote this song the quickest out of the three. I was originally intending to write it just acoustic guitar, just one vocal, and then I kind of shot myself in the foot by experimenting, and I just slapped together some random 6/8 drum patterns in Superior Drummer 2 and then played along to it, and then it kind of made me inspired to keep experimenting. And this whole EP, I didn't really care too much about how it sounded and just how it turned out in general. It was more meant to make a statement than sound good. I wound up adding electric guitar to it as well, so pretty far off what I originally intended, but it's still the soft song. I was kind of experimenting in this song by doing 6/8 timing. That's not something I do too terribly often, but another thing I did was I just kind of ended the song's lyrics abruptly and then just kind of added an extended guitar outro, so a little far off bass. But the electric guitar I used on this song was my 2017 Fender American Professional Stratocaster. I just kind of went for that typical bluesy Strat sound, like John Mayer, John Frusciante, whoever, the modern day Strat icons. But to further go off course from what I originally intended, I added bass to this song as well. And the other two songs have bass, but this one got it most prominently. And part of that is because I really aimed to have space in the instruments of this song. I wrote the acoustic guitar to those drums in like an hour and then applied the electric later. But as I was writing the acoustic part, in my other songs, not just on this EP, but overall, would have the guitar fill out the song more. I'd be doing some, ghost notes or whatever. And in this one, I just kind of told myself to stop at points in chords that I wouldn't normally, I'd just play na-na-na-na and stop there. Whereas in songs where I'm not telling myself to include so much space, I would have gone da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, fill it out more. And in this song, I just played very simply. And so the bass that I then added to this comes through a lot more. One of my favorite bands has always been Opeth, not that I have favorites. And on this song, I pretty intentionally felt inspired by their Damnation album, which is very mellow for them. A lot of single coil sounding electric guitar, a lot of acoustics, a lot of reverby vocals. When it came to recording the bass, I realized I can kind of go that route with this song because I left so much space. The bass comes through so prominently, and so it's not just a bass part that follows the exact guitar part all the time, because you can hear it separately apart from the guitars, which brings me to the mixing of this song before we get into the vocals, which are the main thing I want to talk about here. I kind of overdid it on the bass. This definitely didn't turn out to be the simple, bare acoustic and vocal song that I intended. Compared to the other two songs, the bass is like really loud here. And in doing this whole thing quickly, I also mean I did the mix very quickly while I did my day job. So there are points in the song that are pretty amateur where it actually gets to be too much and you can kind of hear it negatively impacts the mix, but I don't really care that much. And with both the acoustic and the electric guitar, I really drenched them in reverb. I kind of drenched this whole song in reverb, but especially the vocals. That Opeth Damnation album has some really cool effects on the vocals, not necessarily so much reverb, but that inspired me to add more effects to the vocals than I would normally feel comfortable with. And so the vocals are very reverb drenched, and really the reverb just adds most of the mood to this song. But that brings me to the vocals, which are the main thing I wanted to talk about in this song. Not so much how I recorded them, although I should say the other two songs on this EP were recorded with my phone because they're very loud and I can't record them in here. But on this song I said, sure. And I did record this song with an actual microphone. It's my, stereotypical SM7B, because this song is so much quieter than the other two. But the lyrics for this song were one of the first ideas I had for it, at least in terms of the broad topic. I knew in doing an acoustic song on this album, I wanted this to be the more like heartfelt song. And so given the events that have transpired in the US in the past few months, this song is about the people around me rather than the events themselves, and the people that I know and the people who I grew up with and love and am now at a bit of odds with, whether they know it or not. The title of this song is a reference to what you could fairly aptly refer to as a disease that is infecting the minds of many people, but not as many people as the media and as the perpetrators behind it would like you to believe. But when someone has this disease, it seems to become a fairly apparent part of their personality. And I'm not talking about COVID or any other medical pandemic, but for sake of YouTube allowing this video to actually reach some people, I'm not going to talk too specifically on it, because I think there's a risk of having videos about these topics being prohibited from being viewed as widely as a video not about them would be. And really the disease that I'm referring to is mass hatred of other groups of people, of ways of life, and just how that hatred seems to be spreading so far and into people you would never have thought to be so hateful. Sometimes it's even a case where the people I'm referring to aren't conveying the hate with their own words so much as it is that they're in various ways showing their support for the people who are using their words in very directly hateful ways, and they're brandishing their support for actions and things that are happening that represent the hatred of other groups of people. It might be someone you grew up with your entire life. It could be a parent, a grandparent, a cousin, a sibling, your best friend, anybody. You could have been on completely cordial terms with them for your entire life. You could have had the greatest relationship, and you could have viewed them as just the most caring, charming, would never hurt a fly kind of person. And it's like within the past few years, and especially the past few months, something shifted. Just like when someone gets infected with something, they become visibly ill. This is similar. It's like their mind has been changed, and they are now no longer the I would never hurt a fly. They are get rid of those groups or what have you. I don't need to get into it. If you're watching this, you probably know what I'm talking about. And so honestly, one of the most important lyrics in this whole song is just a quick verse line that says, "The people I once loved have gone down a path so dark, I don't know who they are." It's not the chorus, it just says it once, but it kind of encompasses the scope of the lyrical topic here. Another verse lyric is, "Take me back to the days when you'd see a neighbor and wave and you didn't care what they did at home." I believe you do care if your neighbor is a serial killer or something like that. So you do care a little bit what people do at home, But in general, you don't care about, who they love or what cultural practices they have at home or something innocent like that used to just not be as publicly outward of a care in society. People might have cared, but it has become more popular for people to announce their distaste and hatred toward whatever doesn't affect them. And one of the tiny personal details has to do with where I'm from. I'm from North Dakota originally, which is, a state where this might be a little bit more prominent than, say, where I live now, Washington near Seattle. And so in the chorus, I say, there is a disease at the door, and I lead it into, I don't think I can ever go back home, which is an overstatement, but it's what I feel in my heart. I don't really want to go be around so many people that are in support of each other joining this insanity. And so I really felt the need to have this kind of song be the softer acoustic song on the EP, because it's the most emotionally apparent thing. Like, you can be the type of person that is blissfully ignorant about the news. You could ignore it all, or maybe you're somehow able to brush it all off. But if you know people who are infected with this disease, it's a noticeable change. And it's not just in what they're in support of, it's in the things they talk about that maybe they never talked about before. It's in how they treat people. It's in the destruction of their manners sometimes. It's like you're watching the personalities of those around you just completely degrade. But anyway, one of my goals for this song that I didn't really meet was for it to be just like a very short and to the point song, and I still was very brief with the lyrics. There aren't many lines to this song at all, but I was very intentional with each word I chose. And so that's basically how I wrote and recorded this song. I just got sorrowful about the people around me, played the first thing that came to mind to some random 6/8 drums, and it turned out alright. But most of all, I hope you like it. Honestly, I hope you don't feel any relation to the topic, because good for you if you don't. Maybe you're from a different country then. But for those of you that do feel impacted by the things I described, you're not alone. We're all watching it happen. Hopefully the disease at the door goes away soon. You can find this song and the rest of the EP on all of the services, Apple Music, Spotify, probably somewhere on the dark web. Like, if people are making creepy, I'll stop there. But thanks for watching.